Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker, and what are we going to do today? Well, first, let me say this. First, make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right. Make sure you like this video. Feel free to drop a comment down below, or if you have a question about something that I attempt to explain, please put your question in the comments down below. All right. Also, share this video with somebody that you know. All right. Now, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about this. Let's just read the instructions. Find the slope of the line perpendicular to this line. 4x plus 4y equals 20. Now, one of the things I don't like that happens in a lot of classrooms is that a lot of teachers, and I know about this because I used to do this myself early in my teaching career when I wasn't as good as I am now, right? We tend to just glaze over or gloss over, right, instructions. You got to make sure we understand the instructions. So what does this mean? First, find the slope. First of all, what is slope? All right. Slope is a number. It's a number that you find within an equation. What does it represent? It represents how flat or how slanted a line is going to be. That's what slope is. Slope is a number. If you were to graph, right? Let me show you something. Let me do like a little quick and dirty graph, right? So let's say we got a y-axis, x-axis, y-axis, x-axis, and that's your graph of a straight line, right? The slope determines how slanted it's going to be or how flat it's going to be. That's what the slope does. It's a number, right? Also, in a lot of applications in business and in science, it also indicates like a rate of change, right? Now, if you have a part-time job and you're trying to figure out what your paycheck is going to be at the end of the week or at the end of the 2 weeks, or if you get paid monthly at the end of the month, the slope is your pay rate or your wage, how much you make per hour, per day, per minute, per second, however the denomination is or however it's broken down. So make sure you understand what the slope is. It's a number. What is that number good for? The number tells us in a graph how slanted or how flat the line is going to be. All right. Now, a line. The line looks like this, but it's represented by an equation. So the line has a picture, but then it's got a name. An equation where you have x's and y's is the name for the line. All right. So we want to find the slope of the line that this upside down T, make sure you know that. This upside down T means perpendicular. Perpendicular. Notice how this line, this vertical line, is at a 90 degree angle with that horizontal line within the symbol, right? That's called perpendicular. All right. So that means, for example, if I was drawing a line that was perpendicular to this line, it would look something like this. Yeah, because that's at a 90 degree angle. You see what I'm saying? That little box in the corner, that indicates that we have a 90 degree angle right there. So if you took out a protractor and measured the angle, it should be 90 degrees. All right, so that's what this symbol means. Find the slope of the line that's perpendicular to this line. When you're doing problems like this, right, in an algebra class or even a geometry class, and the question is talking about perpendicular lines and parallel lines, that's a hint that you need to know what the slope is. You're going to need to know what the slope is. Now, in this particular problem, they're coming out bluntly and directly asking you to find the slope. Sometimes they won't do that. But just know, when you see a conversation about perpendicular lines or parallel lines, the slope is involved. All right? Because, of course, parallel lines have the same slope. If two lines are parallel, they got the same slope. So a line that was parallel to this would go like this, right? Just like streets are parallel. They got the same slope, meaning they're never going to intersect each other. They'll never cross each other. They'll never meet, right? It's kind of sad when you think about it. They got so much in common, but they're never going to meet each other, right? Parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are going to cross each other, but they're only going to meet one time, ever. Only going to meet one time. That's it. It's like somebody cool that you meet them one time, and that's it. Never see them again for the rest of your life. That's kind of sad too, when you think about it. But hey, such is life, right? Perpendicular lines, right? And they form a 90 degree angle. All right, so when you want to find the slope of the line that's perpendicular to this line, first you got to find the slope of this line. So you find the slope of this line, and then it's a two-step process to find the slope of the perpendicular line. You have to find the negative reciprocal, what we call the negative reciprocal of the slope of this line. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But first thing I want to talk about is this. 4x plus 4y equals 20. there's different ways that we can write the equations of lines. There's what we call standard form. Standard form looks like this. AX plus BY is equal to C. And there's what we call slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. Now, there's another form called point-slope form, but I'm not going to get into that because that's not relevant right now. These two forms are very relevant right now. Slope-intercept form is the more popular. You probably heard of y equals mx plus b, right? So dig this. Slope-intercept form is like slang, right? It's like when if you're a young person, when you text your friends, you probably use a lot of acronyms. You probably use a lot of abbreviations. But if you are having a conversation with one of your parents or an elder that you respect, your grandparents, right? Your uncles and aunts, you probably don't talk to them the same way you talk to your little friends, right? That's standard form. The way you talk to the elders and the people you respect more is standard form. AX plus BY equals C. It's like in Spanish when we say tú for you, talking to one of your peers, or usted for somebody that's an elder or somebody that you hold in a high regard. It's the difference between tú and usted. If anybody watching this that ever took Spanish, right? Like I did back in high school and for one semester in college. But at any rate, whenever you see an equation, ask yourself this question. What form is the equation in? Always ask yourself that first question. Whenever you're dealing with an equation that deals with a linear function or a linear equation, right? It's a linear equation because the graph is a straight line and the root word of the word linear is line, right? Ask yourself that question. Is this standard form or is this slope-intercept form? If it's not in the y equals mx plus b form, then, well, it could be in point-slope form, but it's probably not going to be. But in most cases, it's either going to be in one of these two forms. Now, this we can see is in standard form because we have AX plus BY is equal to C. The A, the B, and the C are numbers, right? They're constants, what we call constants, right? Or coefficients. The 4 is a coefficient. This 4 is a coefficient. The C is a constant, right? The 20, right? Now, a lot of teachers, when they give a problem like this, what they want you to do is they want you to solve for y, which basically puts the equation in the slope-intercept form, which we could do. That's cool. We could do that. But I'm going to show you another way to do it, right? Because I'm very big on students having multiple methods for solving problems. You should have at least 2 methods for doing every problem. That's my opinion, right? There's a little formula we use. We call it m equals negative a over b. Now, what does m stand for? M stands for slope. Why does M stand for slope? I don't remember. I read the reason somewhere. It's got something to do with the Greeks or the Romans from back in the day, but I can't remember exactly why. But anyway, M stands for slope, even though the word slope starts with the letter S. But anyway, I digress. M is equal to negative A over B. When it's in standard form, if it's in slope-intercept form, you can't use this formula. But if it's in slope-intercept form, you don't need to use this formula because the reason that we call this slope-intercept form is because when you look at the equation, you can immediately see what the slope is. The slope is going to be whatever number is right here, the coefficient of x, right? So you don't need no formula if it's in slope-intercept form. The reason that it's called, again, why is it called slope-intercept form? Because you can look at the equation on the computer screen, on the paper, on a board, or wherever it's at, and you can immediately see the slope and you can see what we call the y-intercept. And that's another part of the equation that's important, but that's not relevant to this particular problem necessarily. All right. So, but if it's in standard form, we can use this formula. So what does that mean? That means we take the A value, which is 4, we put a negative sign in front of it. So we got negative 4, fraction bar, take the B value, which is also 4. Put that in the denominator. This is our fraction. Then we simplify this fraction. So we do negative 4 divided by 4. Negative 4 divided by 4 is equal to negative 1. So that means that the slope of this line is negative 1. Now, is that the answer to the question? No, because we got to find the slope of the line that's perpendicular. So we're going to do this. So this is what I like to do. M, and then I put the little perpendicular symbol like that, right? That's the original M, the slope of this line. And then we want to find the slope of the line that's perpendicular to this, right? Remember, like that, right? This is the original line. This is the perpendicular line, right? So what we do is we do 2 things. you basically take the reciprocal of the number and then you give it the opposite sign. You don't got to necessarily do it in that order. You could give it the opposite sign first and then take the reciprocal. It don't make a difference, right? But you want to take the reciprocal of the number and give it the opposite sign. Take the reciprocal of the number and give it the opposite sign. So the reciprocal of 1, well, -1 is just -1. This is why. If I made -1 into a fraction, it would be -1 over 1. Now, if you take the reciprocal of a number, it's going to be, you take the numerator and put it down the bottom, take the denominator, put it up at the top. So this would become 1 over -1, right? But the other thing you got to do is you got to give it the opposite sign. Now, before I even go on, 1 divided by -1 is still -1. So even though we took the reciprocal, we still have the same value. It was -1 at first, it's still -1. Make sure you understand that part. Make sure you understand how to take reciprocals when you're dealing with a negative number, right? So we got a -1, right? But if you take the reciprocal, it's still a -1. And what is a reciprocal? Basically, when you take a fraction and you switch the numerator with the denominator and denominator trade places. That's a reciprocal. The numerator and the denominator trade places. That's a reciprocal. That's all it is, right? Now, the second step is you give it the opposite sign. So this is a -1. What is the opposite sign of negative? Positive. So that means that the slope of the line we're looking for is +1. All right, so that's the final answer. The slope of the line that's perpendicular to this line is +1. Now, a lot of teachers don't teach this formula, right? And for various reasons, but I think we should have multiple ways to do it. But we still should know how to do the more popular or more general method, which is to take this equation and convert it from standard form into slope-intercept form. Convert it from standard form into slope-intercept form. You know, it's kind of like, if you read a book and it's the language is very intellectual, right? Very very advanced, includes very advanced vocabulary, and you want to simplify it for a different audience, for younger children that may not understand that type of reading, right? Or that type of information. That's like going from standard form to slope-intercept form. You make it more palatable, make it more understandable. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna solve for y. All right. So I'm gonna rewrite this equation. As a matter of fact, let me use a different color. So let's do 4x plus 4y is equal to 20. Now I want to solve for y. So that means I want to isolate the y on the left side of the equation all by itself. So my first step is going to be to eliminate this 4x. This is a positive 4x. Now, the opposite of positive 4x is negative 4x. So that means I'm going to subtract 4x to apply the opposite. The opposite of positive 4x is negative 4x, which means I'm going to subtract 4x on the left side. I'm going to subtract 4x on the right side. So I'm going to do minus 4x over here. I'm going to do minus 4x over here. Boom, boom. That cancels out. Then I got 4y, and I got 20 minus 4x, right? Now, I want to put this in slope-intercept form or solve for y, right? I know what 4y is equal to, but I want to know what y by itself is equal to. So what do I need to get rid of? Always ask yourself that question. What do you need to get rid of? I need to get rid of this 4. So then I ask myself, what is that 4 doing? What operation? It's involved in multiplication. The 4 is being multiplied by the y. So we do the opposite operation. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 4 on the left side, divide by 4 on the right side. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. So that's 1y. 1y is the same thing as y. We don't need to write 1 when it's our coefficient, right? So then we got over here, we divide each of these terms by 4. Each of these terms gets divided by 4. So we do 20 divided by 4, which is 5. Then we do negative 4 divided by 4, which is negative 1. But again, when your coefficient is positive 1 or negative 1, you don't need to write the 1. We don't need to write the 1. When your coefficient is positive 1 or negative 1, we don't need to write the 1. So I just write minus x. Now, I want to put this in slope-intercept form. In slope-intercept form, the x term is right after the equal sign. So because of the commutative property, which means you can switch the order of terms and the result won't change, I could switch the order of these terms. So I could just rewrite it as y equals negative x plus 5. Notice how that's the same thing. We had positive 5 up here. We got positive 5 down here. We had negative x or minus x. Minus x and negative x mean the same thing. Make sure you understand that. Minus x and negative x mean the same thing. That's one of those details that a lot of students don't really understand, but that's one of those very important details about algebra, that negative x and minus x mean the same thing. So minus x or negative x can go right here. So y is equal to negative x plus 5. Now look, slope-intercept form. The slope is the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x? The coefficient of x is the negative sign represents a -1. The negative sign represents a -1, right? So the negative sign represents a -1. So that means that m, we're going to say m is equal to -1. Now, that's the slope of this line, just like we found when we did it this way, right? Now, how do you find the slope of the perpendicular line? It's two things you have to do to the slope. Take the reciprocal and switch the sign. Take the reciprocal and switch the sign. It's a two-step process when you're dealing with perpendicular lines. When you're dealing with parallel lines, it ain't no process because the slopes are identical. So the line that's parallel to this line also has a slope of -1. The slopes are the same. But if lines are perpendicular, you got to do two steps. You got to do two things, right? You got two things you got to do. You got to take the reciprocal and you got to switch the sign. So we already talked about what happens when you take the reciprocal of -1, you still get -1. It's the same thing. Just like the reciprocal of +1, it's still +1. It's the same thing, right? But then you switch the sign. So the slope of the reciprocal is +1, just like we had up here. So two ways to do it, right? Standard form. If your equation is in standard form, you can use this formula. M equals -a over b, capital A, capital B. What is A and B? A is the coefficient of the x term. B is the coefficient of the y term. That's where the A and B come from. Make sure you know that. All right? But that only works if it's in standard form. If it's in slope-intercept form, you don't need a formula. You just look for the coefficient of x. The coefficient of x is m, or the slope, like we found out down here. So it's good to know how to do it both ways. All right. Now, this video is getting a little long, but I hope it made sense. I hope that, it's helpful for you. And you got two methods for finding the slope of a line and also finding the slope of a line that's perpendicular to a line. You know what I mean? So as I said, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you share this video with somebody. Make sure you like the video and please drop a comment down below. And I'll see y'all on the next video. Peace.